final here. I think that type of juice, that type of passion.
Today outside the lines, a man with a huge mission, Isiah Thomas in New York.
Sandpart right arm swinging. We got a big one going in the stadium. Big melee here in Chicago Stadium.
He was the NBA's angelic assassin.
Detroit is the city of champions again.
The champion bad boy with the winning smile that only slightly masked the killer instinct which brought him 2 rings, a Hall of Fame plaque, and often bruised feelings in his wake.
Here's Isiah. Let's see what we got. All the way up. Go!
But Isiah Thomas has always been more than a fiercely proud player. There is the executive, the actor, the celebrity, the salesman. In sports, an owner, a coach, and now president of the New York Knicks, the latest role in his unique career arc.
As a black man, you know, I've seen so many guys come through sports and they get to the end of their career and there's no plan. There's nothing for them to do. Well, this isn't a poor athlete story here today.
Thomas broke the mold early, leaving college after Indiana's 1981 national championship, leaving as a sophomore when that was unusual.
Is it the toughest thing you've ever had to do?
No.
Not at all.
I've done a lot tougher things. As a matter of fact, it was pretty easy, you know, deciding whether to take $1 million or go back to school.
The Pistons were his only team in a 13-year career. At his retirement, he appeared poised to join the Pistons front office.
I will be a Piston for my entire career. Because of his strong personal commitment, I'm also able to announce that I will be a Piston for the rest of my life.
But his relations with his own front office were strained. That job never materialized. So Thomas became the first GM of the expansion Toronto Raptors. But 2 years later, his bid to buy control of the Raptors failed, and he was gone. He cooled his heels for a while in television and then bought the entire Continental Basketball Association. But when Larry Bird walked away from his successful run as coach of the Pacers, Thomas succeeded the man he had battled nose to nose.
Tonight, we're here to make the announcement that we've chosen Isiah Thomas to replace Larry here as our head coach.
There were 3 edgy years in Indy. His teams improved, but each year were seen as underachievers, eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. Larry Bird returned as Pacers president in July, and within 5 weeks, he fired Thomas as coach. Bird was reportedly unimpressed with the level of effort from Thomas and his staff to improve the club. This time, Isiah Thomas spent only 4 months in the basketball wilderness as the Knicks, a once mighty but now diminished franchise, turned to his ability to win anyway, anyhow, regardless of who or what is standing in his way.
Right now, recent history stands in his way. A struggling
New York.
It's been called the Mecca of basketball, an arena that once pulsated to the peerless playmaking of Clyde Frazier and the virtuosity of the 2-time NBA champs of the early 70s.
When we were playing, we had a tremendous crowd. There are nights in this building when just we playing on the 5th floor of a building that you could actually feel the building vibrate.
But that was another millennium. For the past 2.5 seasons, the Knicks have been hanging out on that ugly corner of faceless and irrelevant.
This is the funny.
It's bad enough if you're bad in New York, but to be boring in bad New York, you have no chance.
I think Madison Square Garden and everybody in New York gets worried when there's indifference.
Owner Jim Dolan wanted to rid his roster of edgy players like Latrell Sprewell. In doing so, the Knicks became terminally bland, which is why Isiah Thomas was summoned.
Thank you very much.
To deliver wins eventually and to bring back the buzz immediately.
It's big night in New York.
If I can unlock the safe, they say it's a lot of jewels in there. Well, I want to see.
When Thomas took over for Knicks president Scott Layden December 22nd, he wasted little time, dismantling nearly half his roster, starting with Clarence Weatherspoon and his $15 million contract. And in his coup de grace, Thomas snared the Brooklyn-born point guard Knicks fans have been starving for. Stephon Marbury.
Very rarely do you get a chance to connect a player such as Marbury with his hometown and create this type of electricity and buzz.
I see in Isiah as a general manager the same kind of guy he was as a player. I mean, he'd go through a brick wall. You know, he was tough.
He has the guts to pull the trigger. He has a terrific charisma to him also.
On Thursday, the electricity was surging through the Garden like it hasn't in years. Marbury's home debut. But by the middle of the first quarter, the Knicks were down 23-2, and Thomas experienced a cruel introduction to the manic ride that defines the job of running the Knicks.
I'm standing next to Woody Allen, you know, and he says to me, there'll be better nights because they won't miss so many wide open shots. And I'm like, man, everybody know the game here. I mean, everybody knows the game.
What was the first thing that happened to you since you got this job that made you realize how little you knew about New York?
After the first game here, Spike Lee, Chris Rock, and Jay-Z took me and my son out to dinner. And we went to Jay-Z's place. And they were telling me about New York and how New York really is.
Is he a New York kind of guy, Jay?
Yes, because he's Detroit and New York, you know, they're hard-working, blue-collar towns, and, you know, he understands what it is, the bad boys, and he understands what New York embodies. We're tough here, we're tough.
He's a kid that grew up in a tough area of Chicago and maybe succeeded against the odds, and that's what New York is about.
Apparently, Thomas defines toughness differently than some of the players he's inherited. In the first game after he was named Knicks president, Thomas watched Latrell Sprewell spew profanities at owner Jim Dolan, while his Knicks ignored the indignities.
What did that tell you about the players on your team?
Well, not really so much about the players, but just the depth of where we were as a Knicks franchise, how low we had become.
Thomas let them know it would never happen again, not on his watch and not in his house.
I was remembering how I used to feel walking into Madison Square Garden. I felt like I had absolutely no shot at winning the game if we didn't play at A+ level. I mean, if we played at A level, I mean, the crowd, not the players, the crowd was going to beat you.
That crowd hasn't been around to beat anybody. But since Thomas hit town, the Knicks have sold out the Garden regularly.
Isiah is one of those guys that makes things happen. You see that here tonight. It's electric. It's what New York's all about.
When you look at who has succeeded in sports in New York, not just basketball, a lot of times the formula appears to be a big presence, a huge personality. Pat Riley, Bill Parcells, George Steinbrenner. Do you see yourself as someone of that kind of presence?
Excuse me. Hell no. You talk about me. I mean, I'm a kid from the west side of Chicago, okay? Curtis Mayfield had a song called Ghetto Child. And that's kind of what I live by, and that's kind of like my theme song. And I still see myself as, you know, that little ghetto child who's just trying to get out and trying to be and trying to overcome.
Mike and the Mad Dog with Isiah Thomas.
For now, Thomas is trying to overcome the apathy, the culture of defeat that festers in this franchise, and quiet the whispers that he's not executive material.
Why would you put your reputation on the line where failure in New York can be so spectacular?
Failure has never been an option for me. And, you know, if I can come from the west side of Chicago and, you know, get out of the neighborhood that I got out of, you know, and be alive, you know, I mean, I can do this.